Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. I've got my girl Juno with me today as we are going to talk a little bit about feeding rodents to your snakes. I have a larger collection, so I go through many different types of feeders depending on the species as well as how old the particular snake that I'm feeding is. So I'll go through various types of feeders. So I wanted to share with all of you, as I've had several different people asking questions on the types of feeders that I use and how I prepare things like Frozen-thaweds before I offer them to my snakes. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So stick around. Again, this is my girl Juno. I'm Jack, and you're watching Python Addiction. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. So like I said, I've got my girl Juno here with me today. She is a pastel fire spider girl. She's just kind of chilling with me. If you actually like how she looks and are interested, go to my merch store, merch.pythonaddiction.com. I actually have a couple of pieces of merch with pictures of her on it if you're interested, and that would help support the channel a little bit. But today I wanted to talk about feeders, and not exactly a discussion this time around on which one is the best, but kind of going over the ones that I use here at Python Addiction and how I go about preparing things like my freshly killed and my frozen thawed when it comes to getting them ready to actually feed off. So first things first, I'm going to set her back into her enclosure for right now. Now that she's back in her bin, I can talk about the different methods of feeding that I personally do. Now, I use rats, mice, and African soft furs as my actual rodents of choice. So what I'm going to be talking about applies to all three of these. And it also really applies to any type of feeder for reptiles that you're using, because this could also apply to things like quail, and if you have larger boas and stuff and you're feeding things like rabbits and stuff like that, it'll apply there as well. First, live. Very simple process when it comes to those of my snakes that I feed live. I put the live feeder in there. It stays in there for a total of 5 minutes. That's it. If they don't take it within that 5 minutes, it comes out. I do not leave the room while there is a live feeder in an enclosure, period. It doesn't matter if it's something small like a small mouse up to the larger rats when it comes to me feeding my boas, which thankfully all of my boas eat frozen thawed, so I normally don't have to worry about that particular issue there. But if you're feeding live, you should not be leaving the room once you introduce that live feeder to your reptile, and it shouldn't be in there for more than 5 minutes. If they haven't taken it within that 5-minute period, it needs to come out, and you just need to wait for the next scheduled time that they would eat to offer again. Don't try to offer it the following day or anything like that, as that's not a good way to establish a healthy feeding habit for your reptile. Second way that I feed is freshly killed. I raise and breed all of the rodents that I feed, with the exception of some of the frozen thawed. I do generally get some extra when it comes to frozen thawed through either one of the local suppliers here where I live, and occasionally I'll also go through Rodent.pro when I need to restock. But otherwise, I supply and I breed all of my feeders that I offer to my snakes, especially when it comes to this method being the live and the freshly killed. So with the freshly killed, I'll go through the process of dispatching them. I have a homemade CO2 chamber that I use to actually dispatch them using CO2, and I normally do no more than a batch of 15 to 20 at a time, depending on the size of the prey that I'm going through and offering. I won't overfill this. It'll fit enough to where I can do it in batches, and then I'll go through, batch it out, and offer to each of my snakes. The nice thing of doing freshly killed is the fact that if I get a refusal, I can freeze that refusal and offer it the following time for feeding. I will still track it like I track all of my feedings using Husbandry.pro, so I know that that particular animal, instead of getting offered a freshly killed the following week or whatever, is going to get offered the one that's in the freezer. And I have a whole methodology on why I'll only offer it to that particular snake. If you guys want to know more about that, that's a whole completely different topic. Let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to talk about the whole process of how I keep some of the feeding aspect of things quarantined as well for each of my snakes. But now we'll go into the final method when it comes to feeding, and that is frozen-thawed. So with freshly killed, it's very simple. You offer it. If they refuse, I set it aside. It gets frozen. The frozen-thawed is a little bit more of a process. I only use one method for handling my frozen-thawed, and I think it's one of the safest methods. Personally, if you have a difference of opinion, please feel free to share it in the comments below, but I'll go through some of why I think the method that I use is one of the safer methods, and I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. I use the cold water method of thawing out and getting my rodents prepared when it comes to defrosting them. And the cold water method for me is tap water. I'll go through, as you can see in this video here, I'll just run tap water over my frozen rodents and let them thaw out. I leave that right into the sink. I'll dump it out once or twice depending on the size of the prey that I'm thawing out, and wait until they're completely thawed. Sometimes it's 2 water cycles, sometimes it's 3. For some of the larger rats, it might take 4 water cycles, but I normally wait about 30 to 40 minutes in between each water change to check to see when they're thawed out. Never do I use boiling water for the next method, or the heat up process, we'll call it. Never, because that's too hot. Even when you heat it up and then cool it down, it's too hot. And this is why I use the cold water method. Meat in general starts cooking at around 105 degrees. Technically, at 100% humidity, the human body can literally start cooking itself at 95 degrees. That is that whole process of being dehydrated and everything like that. You can cook yourself, quite literally. But the general rule of thumb when it comes to looking into like the food industry in general, 105 degrees is that point when meat starts to cook. So that's the safety temperature when it comes to thawing things out and warming things up to feed to my snakes. Heating them up for my boas, for the most part, room temperature is perfectly fine for most of my boas. They will take it without any problem whatsoever. I normally don't have to worry about heating up any of the rodents beyond room temperature using the cold water method that I use to thaw them out, because they come up to room temperature. My room temperature in the house is normally in the mid-70s, which is perfectly fine. I offer it to my boas. They take it. They don't even ask questions. It's nice and easy. But for my ball pythons, on the other hand, they like their food warm. And when I say warm, I say about 104 degrees works for almost every last one of my snakes to take frozen thawed without question if they are actually hungry. So I run my tap water on hot until it starts steaming like I show you here. I know now that my water is at about 130 degrees because that's what my thermostat for my hot water tank is set at. In the US, generally speaking, unless you change it yourself, most are set in between 120 and 140. Be cautious that anything over 120 is considered scalding hot and can give you at least first degree burns. So generally speaking, 120 is normally where most hot water tanks are. I turn mine up just a little bit because I know where it's at, and I always turn it down afterwards. So I have it at 130 when I see the steam, so I know where it's at. I start cranking it down until I can hold my hand under that water and it's not scalding hot. It's not burning me. So it's hot, but it's not too hot. That's normally around 105, 106, 107 degrees, somewhere's in that range. I don't take my thermostat to it personally. I know by touch, oh, this is good. I get it to that temperature, and I dump out the cold water that's in the bin for my rodents, and I fill it up with that hot tap water. Once I'm done filling it up, and I fill it up until everything is completely submerged, and I normally leave about a good another inch on top of all that just to make sure everything stays nice and warm, and then I bring it right in here into the reptile room. Those rodents probably stay in that water for a total of 3 minutes, maybe 4 at most. Because I come in here from coming into my kitchen, come in here, I'm immediately starting to offer those rodents to my snakes. So it's in that water very little. And that's the key. The key when it comes to the frozen thawed process is making sure you don't cook your rodents, because cooking them is bad. And it's bad because cooking is basically the denaturing process. It starts to denature the proteins of the rodent that we're actually offering as food for our reptiles. Our snakes already have very strong acids and enzymes in their digestive tract to do this process chemically. By giving them rodents that are cooked can cause other digestive issues, because then their system is trying to denature something that's already partially denatured, not something that you want to actually deal with in the long term, because that can lead to potential regurgitation if you're leaving the rodents in the water too long and cooking them, or getting them too warm to cook them. And that can lead to, like I said, regurgitation, and it can also lead to other things like they could get diarrhea or not have a full digest the prey completely in that whole process. So you want to get it warm, but get it warm and offer it as quickly as possible, trying to make sure that you're not getting it past like 105 degrees. So going through and thawing them out using the cold water method is the easiest, I find, but you can also leave them out to just thaw out room temperature wise. Not everyone likes to do that, or to just see a whole bunch of rodents just sitting out on a countertop type of thing. So that's not normally my method, but that is a safe method. But the method that is not safe to do is to use a warm water method for thawing them out. Because the warm water method is normally too warm, and it starts the whole cooking process. Or it will cook the outside portion of your rodent, and it can lead to other issues when it comes to actually feeding it to your snake, especially if they're a constrictor, and them potentially exploding the guts all over the place. That is a mess that you do not want if you can avoid it. So, no boiling water of any sort, no super hot water of any sort. When it comes to warming things up, just your hot tap water works perfectly. As far as heating them up, you want them no more than 105 degrees at max, to make sure that you're not actually cooking them when you're offering the rodents to your snakes. And that's it. It's a very simple process in that regards. I know, again, there are a few other methods that people might use as far as thawing things out and offering them. My boas are the easiest because I don't have to worry about ever really bringing them up past room temperature when it comes to me offering them frozen thawed. And that's one of the reasons why I generally try to do freshly killed whenever possible, because then it's as fresh as possible, taking away or mitigating the potential of damage or injury by them getting bit by the rodent that I'm offering them as food. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below on this whole discussion today. Please do also like this video, as that lets me know you like this type of content. And I know it's a little bit of a veer off from the last few videos that I've done, as those have been all egg boxing videos for getting eggs into the incubator, which there will be more of them coming up soon, so please do stay tuned. And as always, if you've made it this far into the video, and if you haven't done so already, please do consider on subscribing. And while you're at it, clicking that notification icon, as that will let you know when I do new videos. I tend to do new videos at least once a week. But stay tuned over the course of the next few weeks, as we will be having baby hatchlings coming out soon. So I will be doing live egg cuttings as those clutches become available. So make sure that you have those notifications on so you'll know when I'm doing those live streams. But until next time, I'm Jack. You've been watching Python Addiction. I love you all. Bye.